I read my guardian's notes saying, "The psych ward takes minors on 72-hour holds, 3 days before anyone can visit or question it." The notebook was open on Gerald's desk, his handwriting sharp and precise across the lined pages. I stood frozen in his home office doorway, the vacuum cleaner still humming in the hallway where I'd left it during my Saturday chores. My 15-year-old hands trembled as I read the words again, trying to make them mean something other than what they clearly said. Gerald had been my legal guardian for 2 years, ever since my parents died in the house fire. He was my father's college roommate, the godfather who'd stepped up when I had nobody else. Below the note about the psych ward was a phone number for Riverside Behavioral Health, and a date circled in red ink. Monday, 3 days from now. My name was written at the top of the page with the word volatile underlined twice next to it. I grabbed my phone and took photos of every page in the notebook, my breath coming in short gasps. The next page detailed my supposed behavioral problems over the past 6 months. Refuses to follow household rules. Displays aggression toward authority figures. Shows signs of deteriorating mental health. None of it was true. I'd been the perfect ward, desperate to keep the only stable home I had left. I did my chores without complaint, maintained straight A's at school, never stayed out past curfew. The only thing I'd done recently was question why Gerald had started dating my therapist, Dr. Reina Vega, 3 months ago. I'd thought it was weird that he was romantically involved with the woman who knew all my trauma from losing my parents. When I mentioned it made me uncomfortable, Gerald had gotten cold and distant. Now I understood why. Dr. Vega's name appeared multiple times in the notes, along with references to psychiatric evaluations and treatment recommendations. She'd been documenting a false narrative of my mental decline, creating a paper trail that would justify involuntary commitment. I heard the front door open downstairs and Gerald's voice calling my name. I shoved my phone in my pocket and stepped away from the desk, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. He appeared at the office door, his face shifting from surprise to anger when he saw me standing there. "What are you doing in my office, Kira?" His voice was measured but dangerous, the tone he used when I'd crossed a line. I pointed at the vacuum in the hallway. "Cleaning." The door was open and I saw papers on the floor. It was a weak lie, but I needed time to think. Gerald's eyes moved to the notebook on his desk, still open to the page with my name on it. His expression changed, hardening into something I'd never seen before. He walked slowly into the room and closed the notebook, placing his hand flat on the cover. "You read it." It wasn't a question. I considered denying it, but the fear in my gut told me lying would make things worse. "Why would you write that about me? None of those things are true." Gerald sighed and sat down in his desk chair, suddenly looking tired. "Kira, you're unwell. You have been for months. The trauma from your parents' death has manifested in ways you can't see clearly. Dr. Vega and I have been documenting your decline because we're concerned about your safety." His words sounded rehearsed, clinical. I stepped back toward the doorway. "I'm not unwell. I go to school. I do my homework. I follow all your rules. You're making this up." Gerald stood, and despite being only 5'6", he seemed to fill the entire room. "You've been having nightmares, screaming in your sleep. You've been withdrawn and hostile. Last week you threw a plate during dinner." The plate incident was real, but he'd deliberately left out the part where he'd told me my mother would be ashamed of my grades, even though I had a 4.0 GPA. I'd reacted by slamming my plate down on the table, not throwing it, but his version would look different in official reports. "I want to call my caseworker," I said, backing into the hallway. Gerald moved faster than I expected, crossing the room and gripping my upper arm. "Your caseworker retired last month. Your new one hasn't been assigned yet. There's nobody to call, Kira. And even if there was, who do you think they'd believe? A licensed psychiatrist and a respected attorney, or a traumatized teenager with documented behavioral issues?" I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Let go of me." He released my arm and held up both hands. "I'm not the enemy here. I'm trying to help you. 3 days of observation and evaluation will give the doctors a chance to adjust your medications and make sure you're stable." I didn't take any medications. That was another lie. I turned and ran down the hallway to my bedroom, slamming the door and locking it. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. I had school friends, but none close enough to help with something this serious. My extended family lived across the country and I barely knew them. The only person I trusted was my English teacher, Ms. Delgado, who'd noticed I seemed stressed lately and told me I could talk to her anytime. I texted her. "I need help. My guardian is trying to commit me to a psych ward for no reason. Can I call you?" The response came within 2 minutes. "Yes. Call now." My voice shook as I explained everything to Ms. Delgado, from the notebook to Gerald's threat about the 72-hour hold. She listened without interrupting, then asked careful questions about dates and specific incidents. "Kira, this is serious. If he has documentation from a psychiatrist, he can have you committed as a minor. But there are steps we can take. First, do not leave that house with him voluntarily. If he tries to take you somewhere, refuse. Make him call the police if he wants to force you. That creates a record." Her voice was steady and calm, the same tone she used when teaching Shakespeare. Second, I'm going to make some calls. I know a family law attorney who handles guardian abuse cases. Stay in your room tonight and don't engage with Gerald unless you have to. I heard footsteps outside my door and lowered my voice. He's outside my room. Ms. Delgado's tone changed, becoming urgent. Put your phone on silent and hide it somewhere he won't find it. If he takes your phone, you lose your ability to get help. I'll call you back in an hour. I ended the call and tucked my phone inside a shoebox in my closet, buried under old sneakers. Gerald knocked on my door, 3 firm raps. Kira, open the door. We need to talk about this calmly. I sat on my bed, pulling my knees to my chest. I don't want to talk right now. There was a long silence. Then Gerald's voice came through the door, softer now. I understand you're upset. I should have discussed this with you before making decisions. Dr. Vega is coming over for dinner tonight. Why don't you join us and we can all talk together? The idea of sitting through dinner with both of them made my stomach turn. I'm not hungry. Gerald's footsteps retreated down the hallway. I waited until I heard him go downstairs, then retrieved my phone. Ms. Delgado had sent a text with a name and number. Attorney Lucia Frame. She's expecting your call. Tell her everything. I dialed the number and a woman answered on the second ring. This is Lucia Frame. I explained the situation again, and this time tears came with the words. Lucia listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions about dates, documents, and Gerald's legal status as my guardian. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Kira, I'm going to be very direct with you. Your guardian has the legal authority to make medical decisions on your behalf, including psychiatric hospitalization. The fact that he's involved with your therapist is ethically problematic, but not illegal. However, if we can prove he's fabricating your mental health issues for financial or personal gain, that changes everything. Why would he want me in a psych ward? My voice cracked on the last word. Lucia's response was measured. There are several possibilities. Life insurance policies, access to your parents' estate, control over inheritance or trust funds. Some guardians commit minors to gain access to disability benefits or Social Security survivor benefits. Do you know anything about your parents' financial situation when they died? I thought back to the funeral, the lawyers who'd spoken to Gerald in hushed tones, the paperwork he'd made me sign without explaining what it was. There was a life insurance policy, I think, and my parents owned their house, but I don't know details. Lucia made a sound that might have been typing. I'll need you to do something difficult. Tonight at dinner, try to get Gerald or Dr. Vega to say something specific about why they think you need psychiatric care. Record the conversation on your phone if you can do it safely. We need evidence that contradicts the narrative they've built. The thought of going downstairs and pretending everything was normal made me want to throw up, but I understood why it was necessary. Okay, I'll try. Lucia gave me her personal cell number and made me promise to call immediately if Gerald tried to take me anywhere. I'm filing an emergency motion first thing Monday morning to challenge his guardianship, but you need to stay safe until then. If he forces you into a hospital before we can get in front of a judge, it becomes much harder to get you out. After we hung up, I sat on my bed staring at the wall, trying to process how my life had fallen apart in the span of 2 hours. Gerald had seemed like a blessing when he'd taken me in. My parents' families had fought over custody, neither really wanting the responsibility of a grieving teenager. Gerald had stepped forward, offering stability and a home I desperately needed. For the first year, things had been good. He was distant but kind, giving me space to grieve while making sure I went to school and ate regular meals. The change started around the time he began dating Dr. Vega. He became more controlling, questioning where I went and who I talked to. He started criticizing small things, my posture at dinner, the way I kept my room, my choice of friends. I'd assumed he was just being more parental, taking his guardian role seriously. Now I understood he'd been building a case. At 6 o'clock, Gerald called me downstairs for dinner. I tucked my phone in my bra, the camera positioned to record audio, and pressed record before leaving my room. Dr. Vega was already seated at the dining table, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing expensive clothes that seemed too formal for a casual dinner. She smiled at me with perfect white teeth. Kira, it's good to see you. Gerald tells me you've been having a difficult day. I sat down across from her, keeping my hands in my lap so they wouldn't shake. I'm fine, just surprised by some things I learned. Gerald brought out a roasted chicken and vegetables, playing the role of concerned guardian perfectly. Dr. Vega and I want to talk to you about some concerns we've had lately. We think a short stay at Riverside Behavioral Health might be beneficial for your mental health. I looked directly at Dr. Vega. What concerns? I attend all my therapy sessions. I do everything you ask. Dr. Vega's smile didn't waver. Therapy notes indicate increasing signs of depression and anxiety. Your sleep patterns have been disrupted. You've shown resistance to authority figures. These are all indicators that you might benefit from a more intensive treatment program. You mean the nightmares about my parents burning to death? I kept my voice level, watching her face. That seems like a normal grief response, not a mental illness. Gerald set down his fork with deliberate care. Kira, we're not saying you're mentally ill. We're saying you need help processing your trauma in a safe, supervised environment. 3 days of evaluation and treatment. That's all we're suggesting. I looked at him directly. And what happens after 3 days? Dr. Vega answered. That depends on what the evaluation shows. The doctors will determine if you need additional treatment or if you're ready to come home. The vagueness of her answer confirmed what Lucia had warned me about. Once I was committed, they could extend the hold indefinitely with the right paperwork. I pushed food around my plate, trying to think of how to get them to reveal their real motives. Is this about money? My parents' life insurance? Gerald's face went very still. Dr. Vega touched his hand gently. Kira, this is about your well-being, not finances. But there is life insurance, right? And I'm the beneficiary? I pressed harder, watching Gerald's expression shift from concern to irritation. Your parents set up a trust. Gerald manages it until you turn 18. That's not relevant to this conversation. Gerald's voice had taken on an edge. Actually, it is relevant, I said, surprised by my own boldness. Because if I'm declared mentally incompetent, you'd control that trust indefinitely, wouldn't you? The silence that followed was electric. Dr. Vega withdrew her hand from Gerald's. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is exactly the kind of paranoid thinking we're concerned about. You're creating conspiracy theories instead of accepting help. He grabbed my plate even though I was still eating. Go to your room. We'll discuss this further in the morning. I stood and walked toward the stairs, my heart pounding. Behind me, I heard Dr. Vega's lowered voice. She knows, Gerald. This is going to be more complicated than we thought. I took the stairs 2 at a time, slipped into my room, and locked the door. My hands shook as I stopped the recording and listened to it. Their voices were clear, especially Dr. Vega's final comment. I immediately sent the audio file to both Miss Delgado and Lucia Frame. Lucia called back within 15 minutes. That recording changes everything. Dr. Vega's statement about things being complicated implies they have something to hide. Combined with your guardian's reaction to questions about money, we have grounds for an emergency hearing. But we need more. Can you get access to Gerald's office again? Any financial documents related to your parents' estate would strengthen our case significantly. I looked at my closed bedroom door, hearing voices from downstairs. He'll be watching me now. He knows I'm suspicious. Lucia thought for a moment. Then we need to move faster. I'm going to contact Child Protective Services tonight and file a report alleging financial exploitation and threatened unlawful detention. That should trigger an investigation. Stay in your room with the door locked. Do you have enough food and water? I glanced at the mini fridge Gerald had let me keep for snacks. Enough for tonight and tomorrow morning. After hanging up with Lucia, I texted Ms. Delgado to tell her I was safe for now. She responded immediately, saying she'd come to the house first thing in the morning to check on me. I tried to sleep but kept jerking awake at every sound, terrified Gerald would try to take me during the night. Around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my room. They stopped at my door. I held my breath, watching the doorknob. It turned slowly, testing the lock. Gerald's voice came through the door, barely above a whisper. Kira, I know you're awake. We need to talk. I didn't respond. After a long moment, the footsteps retreated. I grabbed my phone and texted Lucia. He tried to come in my room at 2 a.m. I'm scared. Her response came quickly. Document everything. Take photos of your door lock, note the time and date. If he tries to force entry, call 911 immediately. I've filed the emergency motion. The judge will review it first thing Monday morning. Sunday morning arrived with watery sunshine through my bedroom window. I heard Gerald moving around downstairs, the normal sounds of breakfast preparation. My phone buzzed with a text from Ms. Delgado. I'm outside your house. Come to the front door when you can do so safely. I unlocked my bedroom door carefully and crept downstairs. Gerald was in the kitchen, his back to me. I slipped to the front door and opened it. Ms. Delgado stood on the porch, her expression serious but calm. Are you okay? She spoke quietly, her eyes scanning my face for signs of harm. He tried to get in my room last night, and he basically admitted this is about controlling my parents' money. I kept one eye on the kitchen doorway. Ms. Delgado reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. This is from Lucia Frame. Don't open it until you're alone. She said it contains information about your rights and emergency contact numbers. Gerald's voice came from inside the house. Kira, who are you talking to? Ms. Delgado raised her voice. Mr. Briggs, this is Mariana Delgado, Kira's English teacher. I wanted to check on her about a school project. Gerald appeared in the entryway, his face a mask of polite confusion. On a Sunday morning? That seems unusual. Ms. Delgado smiled professionally. We have a deadline tomorrow for the state writing competition. Kira is one of my strongest students, and I wanted to make sure she had everything she needed. The lie was smooth and believable. Gerald looked at me, then back at Ms. Delgado. I appreciate your dedication, but Kira won't be attending school tomorrow. She has a medical appointment. Ms. Delgado's expression didn't change. I see. Well, I hope everything is okay. Kira, why don't you walk me to my car? Before Gerald could object, I stepped onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind me. We walked quickly to Ms. Delgado's vehicle, parked at the curb. She turned to face me, her voice low and urgent. Lucia says the judge granted an emergency hearing for tomorrow morning at 9. Child Protective Services will be there, along with a court-appointed advocate for you. Lucia needs you to get to the courthouse by 8:30. I felt a surge of hope mixed with terror. What if Gerald tries to take me to the hospital before then? He said I have a medical appointment tomorrow. Ms. Delgado opened her car door and pulled out a business card. This is the number for the police non-emergency line. If he tries to take you anywhere, call them and tell them you're being detained against your will by your guardian. Explain there's an active court case. They'll send an officer to intervene. She hugged me quickly, something she'd never done before. You're incredibly brave, Kira. Just hold on until tomorrow morning. Back inside, Gerald stood in the living room, his arms crossed. Your teacher seems very concerned about you. Have you been telling people that you're unhappy here? I met his eyes, trying to channel the courage Ms. Delgado said I had. I've been telling people the truth, that you're trying to have me committed so you can control my parents' money. His face flushed red. That is absolutely not true. I've spent 2 years of my life caring for you, giving you a home, and this is how you repay me? With accusations and lies? He stepped closer. You're unwell, Kira. The trauma has made you paranoid and delusional. That's exactly why you need professional help. I backed toward the stairs. I have the recording from dinner. Dr. Vega saying things are more complicated now that I know. That's not paranoia, that's evidence. Gerald's expression changed, cycling through surprise, anger, and calculation. He pulled out his phone. If you've been recording private conversations without consent, that's illegal in this state. You've just admitted to committing a crime. The blood drained from my face. I hadn't thought about wiretapping laws. Gerald saw my reaction and smiled coldly. Give me your phone, now. I ran up the stairs to my room and slammed the door, my hands fumbling with the lock. Gerald pounded on the door. Kira, open this door immediately, or I will break it down. I grabbed my phone and quickly forwarded all photos, videos, and audio files to Ms. Delgado, Lucia Frame, and my own email account. My fingers flew across the screen, sending everything to the cloud. Gerald's pounding grew more violent. The door frame started to splinter. If you don't open this door in 10 seconds, I'm calling the police and having you removed for your own safety. I dialed 911 as the door burst open. Gerald stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his face twisted with rage. The 911 operator answered. 911, what's your emergency? I spoke clearly, fighting to keep my voice steady. My name is Kira Navarro. My legal guardian is trying to have me involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility so he can control my inheritance. He just broke down my door. I need help. Gerald lunged forward and tried to grab the phone, but I ducked under his arm and ran past him into the hallway. The operator's voice was calm. Kira, are you in immediate physical danger? Yes, he's chasing me. I ran down the stairs and toward the front door, but Gerald was faster. He caught my wrist and twisted, forcing me to drop the phone. It clattered to the floor, still connected to 911. You're making this so much worse for yourself, Gerald hissed. He picked up my phone and spoke into it. This is Gerald Briggs. I'm the legal guardian of this minor. She's having a psychiatric emergency and has become violent. I need assistance restraining her for transport to Riverside Behavioral Health. The operator's voice was professional. Sir, we're sending officers to your location. Please do not physically restrain the minor. Step away and wait for police arrival. Gerald set the phone down and looked at me with something close to pity. Do you understand what you've done? When the police arrive, they'll see a guardian trying to help a disturbed teenager. Dr. Vega will provide her professional assessment. They'll take you to the hospital whether you want to go or not. I backed against the wall, my wrist throbbing where he'd twisted it. There's a court hearing tomorrow morning. The judge will see the evidence. Gerald's laugh was bitter. There won't be any hearing. Once you're on a psychiatric hold, the court will defer to medical professionals. By the time any judge reviews your case, you'll already be diagnosed with whatever conditions Dr. Vega decides to document. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Gerald composed himself, smoothing his shirt and taking several deep breaths. When he looked at me again, his expression had shifted back to concerned guardian mode. 2 police officers arrived within minutes, a middle-aged woman and a younger man. The woman, Officer Tanaka, spoke first. We received a 911 call from this address. Can someone explain what's happening? Gerald stepped forward, his voice steady and reasonable. I'm Gerald Briggs, the legal guardian of Kira Navarro. She's a minor in my custody. For the past 6 months, she's been exhibiting signs of severe depression and paranoid delusions related to trauma from her parents' death. Today, she became physically aggressive and refuses to accept medical help. I've arranged for her to receive a psychiatric evaluation at Riverside Behavioral Health. Officer Tanaka looked at me. Is this accurate, Kira? I tried to organize my thoughts into something coherent. No, he's lying. He and my therapist are trying to have me committed so he can control my trust fund. I have recordings of them admitting it. There's a court hearing tomorrow morning about his guardianship. The male officer, whose name tag read Gutierrez, exchanged a glance with Officer Tanaka. Do you have those recordings? I hesitated, realizing Gerald still had my phone. Officer Tanaka seemed to pick up on my uncertainty. Gerald, did you take Kira's phone? He handed it over without protest. She was using it to record private conversations illegally. I confiscated it for her own protection. Officer Tanaka gave the phone to me. Kira, can you show us these recordings? My hands shook as I pulled up the audio file from dinner. All three of them listened to the conversation, including Dr. Vega's comment about things being more complicated. When it finished, Gerald spoke immediately. That recording was made without consent in my private home. It's inadmissible and possibly illegal. More importantly, it demonstrates exactly the kind of paranoid behavior I've been describing. She's invented a conspiracy theory about financial exploitation. Officer Tanaka looked at Gerald steadily. Regardless of the recording's legality, it does raise questions about your motives. Combined with Kira's claim of a scheduled court hearing, I think we need to proceed carefully here. Gerald pulled out his phone and made a call. Reina, I need you at the house immediately. We have a situation. Dr. Vega arrived 15 minutes later, still dressed formally despite it being a Sunday. She spoke with the officers privately, showing them documents from her phone. I watched their expressions shift from skeptical to concerned as they read whatever she was showing them. When they finished, Officer Tanaka approached me gently. Kira, Dr. Vega has shared her clinical notes documenting concerning behaviors over the past 6 months. While I understand your fear about the psychiatric evaluation, I have to trust the professional assessment of a licensed psychiatrist. She believes you're at risk of harming yourself. I felt the ground disappearing beneath me. That's not true. Those notes are fabricated. She's been building a false case because she and Gerald want access to my parents' money. Officer Gutierrez spoke up. Is there anyone else we can contact? A family member or another adult who can speak to your mental state? I thought frantically. My English teacher, Ms. Delgado. She's been in contact with my attorney, Lucia Frame. They're handling the guardianship challenge. Officer Tanaka took down both names and numbers. We'll contact them. But right now we have a licensed psychiatrist stating that you need immediate evaluation. We can't ignore that based on speculation about financial motives. Gerald put his hand on my shoulder, and I flinched away. I know this is frightening, Kira, but you'll see that this is for your own good. 3 days of treatment, and you'll feel so much better. Dr. Vega moved closer, her voice professionally soothing. The hold is just for observation and evaluation. We want to make sure you're safe and getting the care you need. You'll be in a comfortable facility with trained professionals who specialize in adolescent trauma. Every word she said was designed to sound caring, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. She knew exactly what she was doing. Officer Tanaka made a call, presumably to verify the court hearing I'd mentioned. I heard her confirm that there was indeed an emergency hearing scheduled for Monday morning regarding the guardianship. When she hung up, her expression was troubled. There is a hearing scheduled. That concerns me. It suggests there may be merit to Kira's claims. Gerald's composure cracked slightly. The hearing was scheduled because Kira made false allegations to a family law attorney. She's manipulated adults into believing her delusions. That's part of the psychiatric crisis we're dealing with. Dr. Vega nodded. Paranoid ideation is a serious symptom. It's actually one of the primary reasons I recommended inpatient evaluation. She's created an elaborate fantasy where the people trying to help her are villains. It's a common defense mechanism in trauma survivors, but it needs professional intervention. Officer Tanaka looked between all of us, clearly uncertain about the right course of action. Finally, she spoke to me directly. Kira, I'm going to contact your attorney right now. If she advises against the psychiatric hold until after tomorrow's hearing, I'll prevent your transport. But if she agrees that immediate evaluation is appropriate, you'll need to go willingly. My stomach twisted as Officer Tanaka stepped outside to make the call. Through the window, I could see her pacing on the front lawn, phone pressed to her ear. Gerald and Dr. Vega stood together, speaking in low voices. Officer Gutierrez stayed near me, not threatening but clearly prepared to prevent me from running. After what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, Officer Tanaka came back inside. Her expression was grim. I spoke with Attorney Frame. She strongly advises against any psychiatric evaluation until after tomorrow's hearing. She's filing additional emergency motions right now. However, she also acknowledges that she can't prevent it if Dr. Vega believes you're in immediate danger to yourself. Dr. Vega stepped forward smoothly. Officer, I appreciate the attorney's perspective, but she's not a medical professional. Based on my clinical assessment and the behavioral escalation I've witnessed today, I believe Kira meets the criteria for involuntary emergency detention under State Mental Health Code Section 394.463. She rattled off the statute number like she'd memorized it. I'm formally recommending immediate transport to Riverside Behavioral Health for a 72-hour evaluation hold. Officer Tanaka closed her eyes briefly, clearly hating this situation. Kira, I'm sorry. I have to defer to the medical professional's judgment. You'll be transported to the facility. Your attorney can challenge the hold in court tomorrow. I felt my world collapsing. Please don't do this. Just let me stay here until the hearing tomorrow morning. I promise I won't do anything dangerous. Gerald shook his head sadly. This is exactly what we were afraid of. The crisis has progressed to the point where she's begging police officers not to get her help. Dr. Vega, should we call for an ambulance? Dr. Vega pulled out her phone. I'll call the facility directly. They have a transport team for situations like this. Within 30 minutes, a white van arrived with 2 orderlies in medical scrubs. They were calm and professional, speaking to me gently as they explained I needed to come with them. We're not going to hurt you, the older one said, a man with graying temples and kind eyes. This is just a safe ride to the hospital. You can bring some personal items if you want. I looked desperately at Officer Tanaka. Please call my attorney again. Tell her they're taking me right now. Officer Tanaka nodded. I will. And I'll file a report about everything that happened here today. The judge will have a complete account. It was small comfort as the orderlies guided me toward the van. I grabbed my backpack and stuffed it with clothes, my journal, and the envelope Ms. Delgado had given me. Gerald tried to hug me, but I pulled away. Don't touch me. I know what you're doing. His face showed hurt, but his eyes were cold. I hope you get the help you need, Kira. I really do. The ride to Riverside Behavioral Health took 40 minutes. The orderlies made small talk, trying to ease my obvious terror. The older one, whose name tag said Raymond, told me about the facility's garden and art therapy program. The younger orderly, Tasha, assured me the rooms were comfortable and private. I didn't respond, too focused on the fact that I had approximately 18 hours until the court hearing, and I would be locked in a psychiatric ward for all of them. When we arrived, the building looked more like a hotel than a hospital, with landscaped grounds and modern architecture. But the reception area had reinforced doors and security cameras everywhere. A nurse named Kelly processed my intake, asking questions about my medical history and current medications. I told her I wasn't on any medications, which she noted with a raised eyebrow. Dr. Vega's referral indicates you've been prescribed anti-anxiety medication and antidepressants. Are you saying you haven't been taking them? I shook my head. She never prescribed me anything. I don't take any medications. Kelly made a note. We'll need to discuss that with Dr. Vega. Medication noncompliance is a serious issue. She took my backpack, phone, and all personal items except clothes. You'll get these back when you're discharged. For your safety and the safety of others, we don't allow electronic devices or items that could be used for self-harm on the ward. I was led to a small room with a bed, desk, and private bathroom. The door locked from the outside. Kelly explained the rules. Group therapy at specific times, meals in the common area, lights out at 10. I had the right to refuse treatment, but that would be documented as non-cooperation. Try to rest tonight, Kelly said. Dr. Feldman will evaluate you first thing in the morning. Alone in the room, I opened the envelope Ms. Delgado had given me. Inside was a handwritten note from Lucia Frame. Kira, if you're reading this, it means they've succeeded in having you committed before the hearing. Don't give up. I've filed multiple emergency motions and contacted the court-appointed advocate. Dr. Feldman, who will evaluate you at Riverside, is known for being thorough and skeptical of coerced admissions. Be honest with her about everything. Document any medication they try to give you and any treatment you refuse. The hearing is still scheduled for 9 a.m. Monday. Judge Ruiz is a former family law attorney who takes guardianship abuse seriously. Stay strong, help is coming. I read the note 3 times, trying to believe it. That night, I didn't sleep. Every hour, a staff member opened the observation window in my door and looked in, making notes on a clipboard. At 2 a.m., a different nurse came in with a small paper cup containing pills. These are to help you sleep, she said. I shook my head. I don't want them. I'm not taking any medication. She frowned. It's in your treatment plan, prescribed by Dr. Vega. I sat up in bed. I'm refusing treatment. You can't force me to take pills. The nurse sighed and made a note. Refusing treatment will be documented. Dr. Feldman will want to discuss this with you. She left, and I felt a small victory. If they drugged me, I wouldn't be able to think clearly at the hearing. Monday morning arrived with the sound of other patients moving around outside my room. A breakfast tray was brought in, and I forced myself to eat despite having no appetite. At 8 o'clock, a woman in her 50s entered my room carrying a tablet and wearing a calm expression. Good morning, Kira. I'm Dr. Feldman. I'm here to conduct your psychiatric evaluation. I sat up straighter, remembering Lucia's note. Dr. Feldman sat in the desk chair and spent several minutes reviewing something on her tablet before speaking. I've read Dr. Vega's referral notes and the intake report from last night. I also received a call this morning from a Judge Ruiz regarding an emergency hearing scheduled in 1 hour. That's highly unusual. Can you tell me why there's a guardianship challenge being heard today? I took a deep breath and told her everything. The notebook I'd found, Gerald's reaction, the dinner recording, Dr. Vega's admission that things were complicated, the financial motive, the broken door, the 911 call. I didn't hold anything back. Dr. Feldman listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. That's quite different from what Dr. Vega described in her referral. She indicated you've been having increasing paranoid delusions and aggressive outbursts related to unprocessed trauma from your parents' death. I met her eyes. Have you treated many teenagers with trauma-related disorders? Dr. Feldman nodded. It's a significant part of my practice. I pressed on. Do they usually have straight A's, perfect attendance at school, and no disciplinary issues? Because that's my actual record. You can verify it. She made another note. That is inconsistent with the behavioral profile Dr. Vega described. Tell me about your relationship with Dr. Vega. How long have you been seeing her? I explained the therapy had started 6 months after my parents died and was mandated by the court as part of the custody arrangement. It was fine until Gerald started dating her 3 months ago. After that, the sessions changed. She started asking leading questions about whether I felt safe at home, whether I had thoughts about hurting myself. When I said no, she'd write things down anyway. Dr. Feldman's expression was hard to read. Did you ever express suicidal ideation to Dr. Vega? I shook my head firmly. Never. Not once. I've never wanted to hurt myself. I miss my parents desperately, but I want to live. I want to go to college and become an engineer. I have plans. Dr. Feldman made extensive notes. Kira, I need to ask you some standard assessment questions. Have you had thoughts about harming yourself or others in the past week? I answered every question honestly, describing my nightmares about the fire but explaining they were becoming less frequent, not worse. I talked about my grief counseling with the school psychologist, which was separate from my sessions with Dr. Vega. I detailed my daily routine, my friendships, my goals. Dr. Feldman asked about the plate incident Gerald had mentioned. I explained the context, how Gerald had criticized my dead mother during dinner, and how I'd slammed my plate down in anger but hadn't thrown it. Did you feel out of control during that incident? Dr. Feldman asked. I thought carefully. No, I felt angry and hurt. I reacted by making a loud noise, but I didn't break anything or hurt anyone. Afterward, I went to my room and cried. That seems like a pretty normal response to someone insulting your dead parent. Dr. Feldman set down her tablet. Kira, based on this evaluation, I don't see evidence of acute psychiatric symptoms requiring inpatient treatment. You present as a grieving adolescent dealing with the trauma of losing your parents, but you're functioning well in school, maintaining relationships, and planning for your future. Those are all signs of resilience, not mental illness. Relief flooded through me so suddenly I felt dizzy. Does that mean you'll release me? Dr. Feldman stood. I'm going to call Judge Ruiz directly and provide my assessment. I'm also going to document serious concerns about Dr. Vega's referral. The symptoms she described don't match what I'm observing. That raises red flags about the validity of her clinical judgment. She paused at the door. The hearing starts in 30 minutes. I'm going to recommend to the judge that you be released to attend it. 20 minutes later, Kelly came to my room with my belongings. You're being released. Dr. Feldman has overridden the 72-hour hold based on her evaluation. A court officer is here to transport you to the hearing. I grabbed my backpack and followed her to the lobby, where a uniformed bailiff waited. Kira Navarro, I'm here to escort you to family court. Judge Ruiz's orders. The courthouse was downtown, a 20-minute drive. The bailiff, a woman named Officer Monroe, explained that Judge Ruiz had been contacted by 3 different attorneys about my case and had bumped it to first on the docket. This must be serious, she said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Judge Ruiz doesn't usually take personal calls on Sunday nights. We arrived at the courthouse at 8:55 a.m. Officer Monroe led me to a courtroom where Lucia Frame was setting up at a table, surrounded by file folders and a laptop. She looked up when I entered and her face showed visible relief. Kira, thank God. Dr. Feldman called me 20 minutes ago. Are you okay? I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ms. Delgado sat in the gallery along with a woman I didn't recognize. Lucia saw me looking. That's Valerie Hirsch, the court-appointed child advocate. She's been reviewing the evidence since yesterday. At 9 o'clock sharp, Judge Ruiz entered. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. Everyone stood until she sat. This is an emergency hearing regarding the guardianship of minor child Kira Navarro, currently age 15. We're here to address allegations of financial exploitation and abuse of guardianship authority. Mr. Briggs, where is your attorney? Gerald sat at the opposite table alone. I was unable to retain counsel on such short notice, Your Honor. Judge Ruiz frowned. This hearing was scheduled Saturday evening. You've had adequate time. Proceed without counsel at your own risk. Ms. Frame, present your case. Lucia stood and spent 30 minutes laying out everything that had happened, supported by the audio recordings, photos of the notebook, my school records, and statements from Ms. Delgado and Dr. Feldman. Gerald's face grew redder as she spoke. When she finished, Judge Ruiz turned to Gerald. Mr. Briggs, these are serious allegations. What's your response? Gerald stood, his voice defensive. Your Honor, I've cared for Kira for 2 years. Everything I've done has been in her best interest. She's experiencing trauma-related psychological issues that require treatment. Dr. Vega, a licensed psychiatrist, agrees with this assessment. Judge Ruiz cut him off. Dr. Feldman's evaluation contradicts Dr. Vega's assessment. Dr. Feldman has no financial or personal relationship with you. Dr. Vega is romantically involved with you. Which professional opinion do you think carries more weight? Gerald opened his mouth, then closed it. Judge Ruiz continued. I've reviewed the audio recording from your dinner conversation. Dr. Vega's statement that things are more complicated now that she knows is deeply concerning. What was Kira not supposed to know, Mr. Briggs? Gerald struggled to answer. She misinterpreted a private conversation. Dr. Vega was referring to the complexity of treating a patient who's developed paranoid ideation about her caregivers. Judge Ruiz picked up a document. I've also reviewed Kira's parents' estate file. There's a $500,000 life insurance trust and significant real estate assets. As guardian, you control those funds until Kira turns 18. The trust provisions state that if Kira is declared mentally incompetent, the trust extends indefinitely with the guardian maintaining control. Is that correct? Gerald shifted uncomfortably. That's a standard provision to protect assets in case the beneficiary can't manage them. Judge Ruiz leaned forward. Mr. Briggs, did you or did you not attempt to have Kira involuntarily committed to a psychiatric facility less than 24 hours before this hearing? Gerald's voice dropped. I was trying to get her help. Judge Ruiz's expression hardened. You were trying to establish a psychiatric record that would support a future competency challenge. Combined with Dr. Vega's fabricated treatment notes, you could have had Kira declared incompetent and maintained control of a $500,000 trust for years. The silence in the courtroom was absolute. Judge Ruiz continued. I'm terminating your guardianship effective immediately. Kira will be placed in temporary foster care while we identify appropriate long-term placement with extended family members. She turned to Lucia. Ms. Frame, contact Kira's maternal grandmother in Oregon. If she's willing and able, I'll approve that placement within the week. Lucia nodded. Already done, Your Honor. She's flying in tomorrow. Judge Ruiz looked at Gerald. I'm also referring this matter to the state attorney's office for criminal investigation. Financial exploitation of a minor, fraud, and conspiracy are serious felonies. You'll be hearing from them shortly. Gerald's face went white. Your Honor, please. I didn't mean for things to go this far. I just needed to cover some expenses, and I panicked when Kira started asking questions. Judge Ruiz's voice was ice. You attempted to have a child falsely imprisoned in a psychiatric facility to cover up your theft. That's not panic, Mr. Briggs. That's calculated evil. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Briggs out of my courtroom. Officer Monroe stepped forward, and Gerald left without another word, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Judge Ruiz turned to me. Kira, I'm sorry this happened to you. The system failed to protect you, and I take that failure seriously. You'll be safe now. Is there anything you need immediately? I found my voice. Can I go back to school tomorrow? I don't want to fall behind. Judge Ruiz smiled slightly, the first warmth she'd shown. That tells me everything I need to know about your mental state. Yes, you can absolutely go back to school. Ms. Delgado, can you help coordinate that? Ms. Delgado stood. Of course, Your Honor. The hearing ended, and Lucia explained I'd stay with a licensed foster family for the next few days until my grandmother arrived. Ms. Delgado hugged me tightly. You were so brave, Kira. You saved yourself. 3 days later, my grandmother arrived. She was my mother's mother, a woman I barely remembered from early childhood visits. She held me for a long time in the airport, crying and apologizing for not fighting harder for custody 2 years ago. I thought Gerald would give you stability, she said. I didn't know you needed saving. 6 months later, Gerald pleaded guilty to financial exploitation and fraud. He served 18 months in prison. Dr. Vega lost her medical license and faced her own criminal charges. My grandmother and I built a life in Oregon that felt like healing. And every time I felt afraid that I wouldn't be believed or that the truth wouldn't matter, I remembered Judge Ruiz's words. Calculated evil. Sometimes justice is just someone finally listening. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.